Hi, I'm Bob Weir with another interview of notable people in North Texas. My guest today is Jack Wyman, who has a successful career as a preacher, a pastor, community leader, and politician. Thank you for being here, Jack.
Thank you very much, Bob, and it's a pleasure to be with your audience and with you once again. Good to see you.
Now, although the written portion of this interview will have a lot more about your background, please give our viewers a brief biography.
Certainly, I'd be glad to, Bob. Thank you. I was born and raised in New England. I'm a native New Englander. Married a young woman from Bartlesville, Oklahoma, and we moved here to Highland Village 17 years ago, and have lived in Highland Village ever since in the same house. And as they say in Texas, I wasn't born here, but I got here as soon as I could. Mm-hmm. And I have loved living in Texas. The Texas people have been wonderful, very welcoming, very warm, very friendly, and I've enjoyed being here. Since being here, I have taught political science and Texas politics, American government, at North Central Texas College in Corinth. I did that for 8 years. Had a great time, loved the students. Love talking to them about America and American history and American exceptionalism, which I deeply believe in. And so it's been a great time here.
You ran for governor too, didn't you?
I ran for governor of Maine in 1994 as a Republican. Oh. And I also, while I was in Maine, when nobody else dared to take on the next majority leader of the United States Senate, George Mitchell, I ran as a conservative, pro-life, pro-family Republican against the next majority leader of the U.S. Senate in one of the most liberal states in the country. Wow. And I was pleased to finish second. But I ran a great campaign and had the courage to step forward, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, that's a lot of great experience. Okay, since this interview will focus on interviews in the news, what would you like to say about the current state of our immigration policy?
Well, I noted with interest this morning on the news that President Trump is going to get his hearing on his asylum proposals on immigration. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which has been in many ways an obstacle to immigration reform, has, I think as a result, Bob, of a tweet that the president put out, changed its mind, and now it's going to hear his asylum proposal. Now, that proposal is one that I happen to support, along with many other reforms in our immigration policy. Congress has failed to address this for years and years and years. It needs to be addressed. It's a serious crisis. What the president wants to do, and I think it makes perfect sense, and I support it, is to hear these asylum cases at a U.S. consulate in Mexico before the people come to the United States. In the month of March, we had 92,607 illegal immigrants that came to this country. That is the greatest number in almost a decade. And interestingly enough, they're not coming now from Mexico. Most of them are coming from what we call the Northern Triangle of Central America, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. And they are coming with families, they're coming with children. And they have just overwhelmed our immigration system to the point where the Secretary of Homeland Security resigned, and we have got a serious problem. And those who say it's a manufactured crisis or that President Trump is making this up don't know what they're talking about, because this is a very serious crisis that is overwhelming our ability to respond and is threatening our national security, I believe. Yeah. And it has to be fixed, it has to be addressed.
Yeah, and of course, it seems to me that if the Democrats weren't so interested in damaging Trump and his administration, they would recognize this themselves and do something. But it doesn't.
Well, you would think we have had altogether too much partisanship and not enough leadership. Right. What we need is less partisanship and more leadership in Congress and in our country.
Let me move on to health care. How do you feel about the health care proposals by politicians in both parties?
Well, Medicare for All isn't going to work. It's a ludicrous proposal. It would, even if it could work, it would bankrupt this country. So I'm opposed to that proposal, and opposed very much to the other measures, and most all of them that the Democrats have suggested and proposed in our Congress. I think what we need to do, we can certainly agree on some proposals, such as including 26-year-olds on their parents' insurance. I think pre-existing conditions is something that has received bipartisan support I support that. But I think what we need to do when it comes to healthcare is we need to create more choices. We need to have private insurance. We need to be giving our healthcare consumers greater variety of plans so that they can choose the best plan for them. Some may opt for lower deductibles, but higher costs. Some will want to take a risk with higher deductibles and lower costs. But we should pursue market initiatives and market solutions on healthcare that are going to include private insurance, give people that option, including, I might add, Bob, faith-based healthcare provisions and plans and programs, which my wife and I have taken advantage of. Our costs have gone down, the quality's gone up. But here's what we need to do on healthcare. We need to increase access. We need to increase choice. We need to protect quality and enhance that, and we need to lower costs. And we especially need to lower the cost of prescription drugs. And we can do that through greater transparency, more choices, more generic drugs in the market, and more information to consumers so that they can make intelligent and informed decisions about the prescription drugs they want. We can lower prescription drug prices, and we need to do that. That's a very high priority.
All right, I'll move on to this. As you know, socialism is a hot topic with Democrats running for president. What's your opinion of that political and economic theory of governing?
Well, if we want to see how socialism works, we don't need to go any further than Venezuela. And there are a lot of other countries where the governments have failed because they've adopted the very kind of governmental approaches and state ownership and state control and government regulation that the Democratic candidates for president are proposing. This referendum, or this election, is a referendum. The 2020 election is a referendum on, we have come to a bend in the road. And the American people in 2020, in this presidential election, and I think all the way down the line, are going to have to choose between free enterprise, free men and women, free markets, and capitalism that has made this economy and this country the greatest economy and the greatest country in the history of the world, or they're going to go down the road of socialism. I mean, Bernie Sanders is ahead in the polls right now, and he is a certified card-carrying socialist. The stakes are high, Bob, and the people are going to have to make a very serious and fully informed decision because it's going to affect our children and our grandchildren for generations to come. We simply must reject socialism that is being promoted by every Democratic candidate for President of the United States. President Trump and his belief in our free enterprise system, his tax cuts, his outstanding Supreme Court appointments, his recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, and his striving to make us energy independent, that needs our support, and I support President Trump.
Okay, let me move on to this now. Recently, Congressman Burgess, who represents our 26th district, cast his vote in the House to lower the voting age to 16 in federal elections. What's your thoughts on that?
I'm strongly opposed to lowering the voting age to 16. I think Dr. Burgess made a serious mistake in supporting that. I heard his explanation, and I must say I was disappointed. I heard him explain to you why he did that. I don't think 16-year-olds in the main are mature enough or developed enough to be deciding who the next commander-in-chief, the next president of the United States is going to be. Now, I'll say right up front, there are exceptions to that. There are very mature 16-year-olds who probably could vote and probably better informed than many 50-year-olds who shouldn't be voting. But I think in the main, 16-year-olds are not capable of making the kind of well-informed, mature decisions that voters need to make, especially in this time, but really in any time. Legal adults are 18 years old. I think the voting age should be 18. I do not understand why Dr. Burgess voted with liberal Democrats on lowering the voting age to 16, and some of those people right now that Dr. Burgess sided with are saying that prisoners should be allowed to vote, that their voting rights, that there's voter suppression by not letting prisoners vote, including the Boston terrorist bomber and Dylan Roof, who shot and killed 9 innocent people in a church in North Carolina. The Democratic candidates for president that Dr. Burgess sided with on this vote of the 16-year-old voting, they've all said every one of them. Well, we should consider letting these convicted terrorists and murderers vote in federal elections.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
ludicrous,
I agree.
it's preposterous.
It's a slippery slope, and
Absolutely
we're
it
there
is.
already. I can see we're already out of time. This goes so fast.
It does, Bob.
And I want to thank you, Jack, for coming
Well,
here.
thank you, I enjoyed it, Bob.
And for
Thank
all
you for having
do
me.
and the service to others. Thank you so much.
Thank
And thank
you.
you for watching.